Hey guys, what's up? This is Insanity, and it's been a Twisted Metal week these past couple of days. Before, I've been trying to figure out whether I want to do a commentary just to briefly introduce a video which showcased all 14 characters versus Darktooth, or if I should just leave it be and have nothing but the gameplay speak for itself. However, the video was ultimately way too long to add a few couple seconds of commentary, so I decided that I would use a different video instead to commentate on that particular video. It's been a long time since I started this channel, which began as a channel for Call of Duty on the Wii, specifically World at War, but gaming and recording gaming has always been a hobby of mine. At that time, I only had a Dazzle capture card and my recordings weren't always the best quality. I still recorded whatever I was interested in and uploaded regardless of quality, though I still opted to look up rendering quality tutorials on YouTube in hopes that I'd get better video quality from gameplays. Though I still scratch my head at those tutorials that produce results that I could never replicate, no matter how closely I followed their instructions. I eventually expanded my channel to record gameplays of other games. As of today, my highest viewing videos on his channel were my Twisted Metal 2 gameplay videos that featured a Darktooth boss fight, the first video being an exploit that could be used to easily beat him with any character, and the second video being my Warthog vs Darktooth fight on hard difficulty. Even though this channel is pretty much dead, and my second channel that I started, which also began as a Call of Duty channel, this time for PS3, isn't doing that much better, I'm still proud of these two videos, and they are the main reasons why I never closed out this channel, despite being inactive for so long on it. I still intend to go with this mostly being a Nintendo-based channel since my game recording roots were with the Nintendo Wii, while having my second channel be of all the non-Nintendo games, though I'm still deciding on what Nintendo games I want to actually play and record. In light of the Twisted Metal show, which resulted in Twisted Metal 1 and 2 being re-released again on the PS Store for PS4 and 5, I decided to revisit the Darktooth boss fight, this time of every character. My recording equipment and rendering capabilities have greatly improved since then, so I'm really happy to be able to present much higher quality gameplay footage no matter the game or platform, and Twisted Metal 2 is no exception. I can either record it in HD on console or on a PC via emulator, and my PC got a graphics card bug, so Twisted Metal 2 can still look just as fine and dandy. It's a huge step up from the standard definition recordings of the Darktooth battle that I posted back then. At this point, Darktooth is pretty much child's play. Every hardcore Twisted Metal player has him down to a science. I vividly remember what my first experience with Darktooth was like. I played Twisted Metal 2 somewhat casually back then, thanks to looking up guides and cheats and hints rather religiously those times. I've seen the hints that featured level passwords for all the characters and was rather intrigued by the passwords for Darktooth. I've seen some of these tricks of the trade for finding him, but I never actually have seen what he looks like at all. At that time, my casual Twisted Metal mindset was very simple. Mr. Grimm has the most powerful special, and he should be able to take on Darktooth easily, right? So I put the password in for Grimm to access Darktooth, as I still have not officially beaten tournament mode with any character in Twisted Metal 2. The moment the game loads me into the fight with Darktooth, my jaw dropped in terror when I saw a giant dark ice cream truck with a demented head, and Darktooth completely annihilated me without me being able to put any real fight against him. I think I had nightmares about Darktooth later, especially with that maniacal laugh. I had to slowly and eventually gain the courage to take on Darktooth in all subsequent battles, and after discovering the exploit as well as reliable ways of dealing with him, I'm happy to no longer be terrorized by him the way I was the first time I entered that fight with Grimm. Despite knowing how to deal with Darktooth much better than I had back then, that fight still keeps me on my toes whenever I don't use the exploit. All these fights were done at medium difficulty. I assume hard difficulty isn't too much of a step up, just going off the time I fought him versus as Warthog on hard mode for that one video. And as you can see, I still do lose lives to Darktooth for some characters. I also made some really dumb mistakes, some unintentional and some suicidal. There's going to be at least one full fight with one random character where I used the exploit the entire time to beat Darktooth, but I opted to use the exploit sparingly and ultimately just recorded all the fights in spite of it. I know that people have already posted a bunch of high quality gameplays of Darktooth getting creamed with every character, but I decided to do things a little differently this time. I intended to record at least 2 Darktooth battles with the usual soundtrack playing in the background, but all the characters after that had the battle presented with different soundtracks instead. However, I had to re-record a fight with one character as I ended up deleting the footage somehow by accident, and I didn't keep track of the fights that I did record with the usual themes playing during a Darktooth fight. So I ended up with 3 fights that had the usual music before I pulled out different soundtracks for each character. There wasn't a particular rhyme or reason for what order I put these fights in, except for having my non-soundtrack changing fights first, and Warthog at the very end. Certain soundtracks were used for certain characters, some of them fitting, so others just because I liked the tracks. And yes, this means I dared to put that bonus minigame theme from Head On as an actual track playing during a battle. It plays during the fights against Darktooth and Towertooth in a PS2 version of Head On. And clearly, nothing is more fitting for a fight against a massive ice cream truck that maniacally laughs at you than a chill theme that sounds like you're casually cruising around. I stuck to Twisted Metal game soundtracks only. I was tempted to actually have Georgie Girl by Seekers of all things playing for the fight. If you never heard Georgie Girl, it's a very jovial and cheerful song. I heard it for the first time in one Twisted Metal 2 video, which I don't think exists anymore, no matter how hard I try to find it. And I really enjoy this song, even though it's clearly very unfitting for a car combat scenario. So I kind of wanted to include it as a sort of tribute to that one Twisted Metal 2 video. But given YouTube's stricter copyright practices in recent times, I don't think I want to push my luck on that. That said, the Twisted Metal series has no shortage of amazing music, and nearly all the tracks I picked, apart from the Head-On minigame theme, are favorites of mine. Only one fight has the entire gameplay with just the soundtrack playing, and that was Hammerhead. I have no idea why the gameplay audio couldn't sync on Sony Vegas, and I was racking my head trying to figure out a way to sync it. Then I ultimately decided to leave out the audio and just have the background music playing for the whole fight to simplify the issue. As for the fights themselves, yeah, they aren't the best ones that I could get with the characters versus Darktooth. The video is just me merely beating Darktooth, a very playable character in the game, so I just kept the first takes of each fight against Darktooth. If it meant any embarrassing deaths happened because of my stupidity, well, that's on me for not playing to the best of my ability. There were 2 Darktooth fights that I deleted, however. I already mentioned the first one that I deleted by accident, which was an Axel fight, as I needed to re-record that fight as a result. The second was a Grasshopper fight, I believe. I had one absolutely embarrassing death through getting ran by a subway train, though I don't think that was the main reason that I deleted the fight. Of all the fights I had against Darktooth when I recorded these, I only lost one fight completely against Darktooth. I can't remember which car I lost against him with, but I'm pretty sure it was Spectre. So apart from Axel, Grasshopper, and Spectre, all the other fights were first takes against Darktooth. My favorite fight out of all these had to be with Grimm, since 1, I got payback for my childhood trauma from facing Darktooth the first time with Grimm, but also because I was heavily amused that he spawned right in front of me in both phases, so that gave me cheap shots of Grimm's special and the Minion special. Some of the other fights did have Darktooth spawn in close proximity, but Grimm was the only one where the game served Darktooth on a silver platter. I was genuinely surprised to find that my fastest fight wasn't with Minion, since he's a special case, but it turned out to be, well, actually no, it wasn't that my fastest fight that wasn't with Minion, since he is a special case, as mentioned before, turned out to be with my favorite character Warthog, as if I needed any more reasons for why he's my favorite character in Twisted Metal 2. It was interesting playing this fight over and over with a different character, as I noticed some additional AI oddities of Darktooth that I never noticed before, the tempo part aside. You all know that Darktooth generally is an aggressive and relentless pursuer. There are some parts of the Hong Kong level that occasionally befuddle his AI. The tempo is one of them, and it's part of the reason why the exploit works. You can only get in via teleporting, and while it's to keep you from just simply hiding inside a temple, you can only teleport into and out of the temple at the side entrance that is near the waterfront. As long as you go through the non-waterfront entrances, that lets you safely get away from him, and can even use this to your advantage to force a confrontation with him inside the temple if you want to personally engage him there. But the important thing is that by hanging at the entrances with the subway tunnel sides and not the waterfront, Darktooth just doesn't have a solid answer for that, and he'll spend most of his time driving by in front of you, leaving him a sitting duck. You might teleport into the temple, at which point you can just simply drive out onto the street and force him to teleport back out. Then you can just go back parked at the entrance again, and there's nothing Darktooth can do about it. Beyond this exploit, other AI oddities include the times that Darktooth just drives by at the intersections I wait for him, possibly stops before even coming around the corner, In the waterfront area sometimes has him getting stuck on the ramp edges. There was even one fight where he repeatedly kept bumping into the wall at a distance for some reason. One last thing I noticed is that Darktooth does occasionally let up his assault and will either drive away or just stop, letting you make a getaway. Usually though, this happens primarily if he catches up to you and has you under his wheels with his jumping attacks. Either way, there's not much reason to come with the expectation of Darktooth just letting you go, provided that you primarily hang around the streets and don't use Temple or Waterfront to break his AI. Overall, Darktooth is still a fun and reasonable boss fight, but clearly someone was not satisfied with him, as there has been a Twisted Metal 2 mod made that greatly ramps up the difficulty. Hence, I recorded this gameplay video, which is a Darktooth fight from the mod. Both parts of Darktooth now have the same health, and the most notable part is the head attack during the head phase. Instead of something that's like a napalm launch, the head will now dart towards the vehicle if Darktooth is within range, and it will hover around you. This head attack is a constantly active hurt box that effectively turns it into an extended version of Dumper's Flamethrower that will rapidly chew away your health and kill you in seconds. It goes through walls and will hit you anywhere on the map without Darktooth needing to catch sight of you. Basically, think of Sweet Tooth's henchman special from Twisted Metal 4, dialed down to just one head with no extra assault on top of that. Darktooth will only use his within range, just like Sweet Tooth from Twisted Metal 4, and the attack will last as long as you're within Darktooth's vicinity. If you get to a certain distance far away from Darktooth's zone, so to speak, then the head will stop being active and disappear. This knowledge doesn't make him fighting any easier to deal with though. Slower vehicles will have a very tough time breaking away from the head attack. They're constantly forced to move, and this effectively renders the exploit useless, and sitting still is the last thing you want to do if the head is already on you. After dying a couple times to him, I did figure out a fairly reasonable method of destroying the head, but it's probably not the best method for how time consuming it is. While the exploit doesn't work, you can still abuse the tempo to put distance between you and Darktooth, as well as force the head attack to end sooner than expected if it's launched. And you still want to keep some distance as you rear fire every homing base weapon that you have. And basically run wraps around the streets through the temple and back onto the streets, slowly exposing myself to Darktooth so that I can rear fire homing missiles every chance I get, while still being on the move, keeping my distance. The remote bomb strategy could potentially work. The main issue with trying to attempt it is that the head attack skews my perception of where the actual Darktooth vehicle is on the map. The dot on the radar will follow the head when it attacks you, but that's not where the actual vehicle is, so remote bombing the head when it's attacking you is going to waste the remote bombs. It makes doing the remote bomb strategy extremely risky. I managed to do a good amount of damage to Darktooth's head during one fight, detonating remote bombs when I was hugging a wall, pretty much out of luck. Because of how much of a pain the head phase is, I relied on the exploit to not only take down the truck phase, but also to bide my time for pickups to regenerate. Since remote bombs weren't doing it for me, one of my losses to Darktooth did show considerable progress as I got the head down to yellow health before losing, thanks to rear firing my homing weapons. So I will repeat the process again, this time grabbing as many homing missiles as possible during the truck phase to make the rear firing strategy viable. I did and recorded this fight on both medium and hard difficulty. I don't think hard difficulty is that much of a difference, but this video is specifically the fight on hard difficulty. One neat change of this mod is that the weapon inventory has been bumped up. In the base game, you cannot have more than, I think, 24 or 25 weapons in your weapons bay. The mod doubles the limit, which is very helpful for grabbing as many homing missiles as I can to rear fire with. If there was a way of getting the remote bomb strategy to work consistently, that would honestly be the best way of dealing with Darktooth's head phase in this mod, which wouldn't need me to constantly run laps around the map through a temple, but for now this is about the best I can do. Anyway, that's the gameplay and commentary. I hope you enjoyed this little insight, and Insanity is out.